what's up everybody? It's Amaya. So today's video is going to be another conversational, informational video related to COVID-19 that I want to discuss with you guys and educate you guys about, because I feel like this content reaches a wider audience and is helpful to a wider audience than perhaps my makeup videos are. I will be back with some makeup videos. I have some good ideas in my head, but for right now, I've been really enjoying and getting good feedback on these videos in particular. And today's topic is how the news and media manipulate you and how to avoid this manipulation. This is obviously a very relevant topic right now because, let's be honest, who's checking the news at least once a day? Yeah, I'm guilty. So for that reason, we are ingesting and digesting so much more news than probably we do on a normal basis because of everything that's going on. We want to stay updated, we want to stay informed, and therefore we are reading a lot more media. However, not all of this media that we are reading is necessarily true, factual, or really that great at all. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how the news media specifically uses things like sensationalism and fear-mongering to draw the readers in, and how to avoid that, and how to read an article critically and successfully. So, without further ado, let's hop right into the video. So the first thing I want to say is that this is not a new concept by any means. In fact, there is a term for this type of journalism, and some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not, but it is called yellow journalism. So the definition of yellow journalism is a type of journalism that relies on exaggeration and sensationalism to draw in readers. And the way that they do this is by using sensational headlines rather than factual news to capture a reader's attention. Prime example of this is those tabloids that you see in the grocery store, like National Enquirer, who have these sensationalized titles claiming these incredible, crazy things that you all know are probably not true. In fact, National Enquirer themselves has had lots of lawsuits for this exact reason, but that is beside the point. This started back in the 18 and 1900s as a way for newspapers to gain more revenue and make their newspapers stand out. During this time, newspapers were extremely popular as they were the only way for people to get their sources of information about the world. So newspaper companies would use this type of journalism using sensationalism and sometimes even completely fabricated stories in order to garner more interest for their specific newspaper, therefore gain more money, and as Tiffany Ferg likes to say,
capitalism, baby!
Some of the many ways that media uses this type of yellow journalism today is through scare headlines, lots of photos and drawings which are sometimes kind of disturbing, the underdog versus the man trope, or using other deceptive means like so-called experts or pseudoscience. And the most significant use and the most prominent use of yellow journalism today is in the form of clickbait, which I'm sure if you have existed at all in any sort of internet realm for more than a minute, you have seen this type of sensationalism. Those titles from YouTubers that you know that they couldn't be true, and you know that they're kind of crazy, but also you kind of want to click on the video. That's clickbait. The reason why I'm talking about this though is because it is so prominent to COVID-19 right now. Because like I said in the beginning, all of us are looking at a lot more news lately, and there's a lot more news on social media, especially Facebook. I find Facebook to be one of the biggest culprits of experiencing yellow journalism and people not reading things correctly, which we're going to talk about later. They're using scary headlines and disturbing or scary pictures to draw the reader in and therefore get you to read their article. However, while it is terrible, there is a reason why yellow journalism grew in popularity and is still growing today. It's very effective, and the main reason is because of its appeal to emotion. It preys on people's anxieties, fears, curiosities, interests, and really draws you in kind of a dishonest way. In fact, it's an entirely dishonest way. And for this reason, it is very harmful. First thing, of course, it causes a lot of unnecessary fear and anxiety. And this is the biggest issue that I have with yellow journalism today, is that with this health crisis going on, people are always really concerned about their health and the health of their loved ones. And when you see these sensationalized headlines, it freaks people out. It's also harmful to any of those that are involved in the story because it kind of makes them look bad. Like if there's an expert that's being discredited in a false way, or even in a tabloid sense, if there is a celebrity who's being involved in this story and it's not even true, it really damages their reputation and just who they are as a person. And it violates the 5 principles of ethical journalism, which I will put on the screen right here. It also gives news a bad rap. It undercuts the credibility of the news media. Like, let's be honest, does anyone get their news from National Enquirer? No, and this is why, yellow journalism. So it's really sad when you see big networks like Fox or CNN or other websites using this type of yellow journalism to kind of exploit their viewers. But the biggest thing is that it provides false information and draws attention away from the actual factual information that is out there that is not sensationalized with a beautiful, catchy headline. It's getting overshadowed by this sensationalism. I do want to point out that there is a difference between a catchy headline and a sensational headline. First of all, a catchy headline is going to be using some sort of literary device or literary technique to grab readers in and draw them in, and oftentimes they will use a part or section of the story that they are going to talk about to influence that title. Sensationalism, on the other hand, is just blatantly stating false facts or using facts and taking them out of context and blowing them up to, sensationalize them. All right, so we've learned that this is incredibly relevant and almost more popular than you probably realized. So how do you avoid it? And honestly, there are a lot of simple ways, and the main thing is that you have to slow down when you're reading something. Slow down, do these tips that I'm gonna share with you, and this will help you figure out if a source is credible or if it's participating in some sort of yellow journalism. So the first thing is to check the source. Where are you even getting this from? Before you click on a website, see what the title of the website is. This goes back to like middle school when you have to do research reports and they're like, don't use anything that's a .com, only use things that are .orgs or .govs. And it's not that extreme here, but you definitely want to check just the title of the website and where you're getting this information. Is it a reputable source? Is it well known? Is it known for being honest? That sort of thing. Also, a big thing is this news media known for being political and swaying one political side or another? That's going to be a big factor in the kind of news that it's delivering. Also, is the site an expert on the topic? Say you're reading something about psychology and it's not on a psychology website, but on like a food website. That website and those authors are not necessarily going to be as knowledgeable on the topic as, say, the APA website or Psychology Today. And do they cite any sources, or is it just a big chunk of words of someone telling you something with maybe a couple quotes in there? That's a big red flag when there are no citations, because even in journalism, you gotta cite your sources. All right, so if it is past that test, the number, this should probably be the number one tip, is to read more than the headline, because I am getting so frustrated by people reading headlines, reposting something, not reading the article, and freaking people out, and then someone finally reads the article and they were like, oh wait, this happened like months ago. I'm gonna give you guys an analogy that kind of helps explain this. So what's the headline's purpose? To draw you in, right? It's kind of like when you're at the grocery store. And where do they put all the essentials at the grocery store? Like the milk, the bread, stuff like that. In the back of the grocery store. At least most grocery stores do. What do they put in the front? All the crap that you don't need. Like if you think about when you walk into a Walmart, you usually have the produce section and the clothing up first. And you kind of have to work your way back to the milk, the eggs, the bread, all the sorts of stuff that you actually probably need, not some sort of cute Friends t-shirt, So that's the same thing with journalism. Use the headline to kind of give a little preface to what the article is going to be about, and most importantly, draw the reader in. But then the actual information and the bulk of the information is in the article itself. So please read the damn articles. Do not just share based on a headline or read, the introduction and then be done. Also, be wary of sensational words. I've seen this a lot in headlines. For example, there was one article that I was looking at and it said that coronavirus numbers soar above this number. When we hear the word soar, we instantly think of something flying up really fast and it sounds like, oh my God, it's out of control. That's a use of sensationalism, right? Because if you were to say that coronavirus numbers go up X so many number, or if you were just to say coronavirus numbers reach this number, it doesn't sound as extreme or as crazy as if you were to say soar or skyrocket or jumps. Those type of words have a lot more of a panicked connotation to them, if that makes sense, than, just words like go up. Also look at the date that it's published. Is this published recently? Was it published like 10 minutes ago and it's reporting on something that happened 10 minutes ago? Because sometimes those articles can be a little rushed. So make sure that an article is fairly recent, but still late enough to have a good, decent amount of information. Sometimes reading articles that come out like 10 seconds after an event happens are not always the most reliable because they don't have all the information yet. Also, read multiple sources. Don't just rely on one source. And I see this happening with a lot of people. They're only watching the news, or they're only watching Fox, only watching CNN, because that's the news that they usually watch. However, in a time like this where there's so much developing information and so many biases and just crap going on, it is so important to read multiple sources and make your decision from that. And if you see a fact or a number being repeated in multiple articles, it is most likely true. If multiple news sources, multiple reputable news sources are reporting on a fact, it is probably, in fact, a fact. Wow, take a shot every time I say fact. And the best way to avoid all of this yellow journalism crap is to get information firsthand by watching press conferences, watching news briefings. That is the best way to avoid yellow journalism and sensationalism and false facts in general, because you have to remember, no matter how neutral somebody has to be, you still have personal bias in there. It is just human. It's going to happen. There is still a little bit of bias. Someone could have misheard something, they could have misread something, misunderstood something. So honestly, the best way to avoid this is to just watch things yourself and get the information firsthand, so there's no middle person in between you and the information. Also, on the subject of reading the actual article, when you look at quotes, look for the little ellipses in the middle of sentences. Those are those three little dots right in the middle of a sentence. What that means is that there was a part of that sentence that was cut out of the actual quote. And that's really important because that could be a crucial piece of information that the author purposefully omitted because it doesn't fit with their narrative and what they're trying to say. So this is why it's really important to read multiple sources, because you could find that quote in full in another article and realize that it's saying something completely different than what the other article was implicating. Also, check the context of quotes, because a lot of times authors will use a quote in their headline, like "this is getting terrible" or some like awful statement. But then when you actually read the article, you'll see that the quote says, "this is getting terrible, but we are on top of it."
Here's an example of a journalist using sensationalism and omitting information in a headline to create fear or panic. Here's the headline of the article. Notice that the journalist does not choose to put in the man's age nor any other identifying information about him other than that he was careful, showed no alarming symptoms, and is now in critical condition in the hospital. However, when you read just 2 sentences into the article, you'll notice that they list his age, which is 84. And to be fair, that is quite an old age. When you read the bottom of the article, you will also notice that they list that while he does not have any underlying health conditions and chose not to visit any groups or go to the grocery store in 2 weeks, he is around other people, such as his wife, his family, and his daughter specifically. There is not information on how he contracted the coronavirus, how long he was feeling sick, or anything like that. But it is important to note that the journalist did not choose to include information that might be crucial, such as his age, but instead just put that someone who is healthy and taking precautions still got the coronavirus. This in turn increases fear and panic among people who are being careful, and this is just totally unnecessary and not helpful.
So my final thoughts. Please don't rely on social media alone for information, especially Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that sorts of stuff. Well, I guess Twitter's a little more reliable than the rest of them. But for the most part, avoid social media and look at reliable sources. I really like looking at sources that are not TV media articles, if that makes sense. So I don't really look at CNN or Fox that much, because even though they are really big corporations, they are known for being biased or not always providing the correct facts. I like to look at things like the New York Post, New York Times, Washington Post, stuff like that, that are more committed to the actual writing of their articles and not so much the sensationalism, because it's not on TV, it's not being broadcast to millions and millions and millions of people. Also, don't share the sensationalized information, even if you're sharing it because you're like, this is ridiculous, this is untrue. Try not to share it at all. Don't give it any more attention than it needs to. It's like a toddler throwing a tantrum. The more attention you give it, the more it fuels the fire. Just ignore it and it'll stop. And that's the biggest thing that I can say, is that don't share this information. And just be vigilant. Really look into what you're reading. Make sure that what you're reading is correct. Use the tips that I mentioned and read the damn articles, not just the headlines. I think that's gonna be like my motto for this, is read the damn article, not just the headlines, because the amount of people that I see just read headlines and repost stuff is absolutely insane. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys liked this video. I hope maybe it helped you out a little bit and even give you some information that maybe you didn't know before. A little nice history lesson. If not, I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you thought and any other tips that you want to share or any thoughts that you have. Please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video. Mwah! Bye.